Hi, Carissa.
I feel like we've already been recording.
I
So
know.
it's like, hello. Oh, yeah, we are recording now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hi
so good to
again.
be with you, sister. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me.
Yeah, this felt like it was coming before I even had this podcast. Like there, as soon as I knew of you, I was like, oh, this is okay, this is a sister. Okay, so we'll connect. Okay. And I just don't know how or when, and here we are. So it feels really good. And hilarious how today happened, and it still feels like really, really good.
So
Yeah.
easeful. Things get to be easy, right? Like we were just talking about. Like there's a smoothness with all of it when you're in the groove and you can feel it, right? That's like what you're talking about, where you pick up on information before it's happening. Like when we connected, it was like, oh yeah, of course we like know each other. And then when we were having the podcast thing, you anticipated that that was something was going to happen, and it did, and it was still like, oh, and we're still here. Not a big deal. Just there's this inner knowing that I feel like we're really waking up to, and I could see it playing out already.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Exactly. Let's start off with my boiling hot question of what
Mhm.
are you reclaiming right now in your life?
Oh, this has been a the deepest reclamation for me. I'm reclaiming my voice. Mm, yeah, I'm reclaiming my voice. For my entire life, I have felt a massive restriction in my ability to speak. And not only speak, but speak from my power and my truth. And that level of yeah, that essence, that vibration, my frequency, what does that feel like
Mhm.
is a whole new territory for me. And I realized in the last couple of years that I have an open throat chakra, or I have an open throat in human design.
Ah,
So on one hand, it's the ability to channel the truth, not just my truth, but like higher source of wisdom, which is a lot of what I do.
mhm,
But also you're really susceptible to absorbing other people's truth.
mhm,
So I've had that where when it comes through for me, it's like, wow, that was not even me. That was a greater source of wisdom and love and soul. And
mhm.
then there's other times where I feel really impressionable and tender and confused about who I am. So I subtly and subconsciously adopt other people's truths and belief systems.
Yeah.
And in the last couple of years, it's been a really powerful intention. But in the last 6 months, and
Mhm.
particularly the last couple of months, for me, it's been like I'm putting my stake in the ground. I'm holding this prayer near and dear to my heart. I'm nurturing it. I'm stepping forth in this and really recognizing that it's deeply about me and my growth and my evolution, but it's also about my divine assignment. It's
Mhm.
about what I'm here to do. So me sharing my truth or the truth is not even just about me. It's about what God, what creator source wants to speak through me.
Mhm.
And when I can remove my ego and my perfectionism and all the plays I want to play small and really anchor myself into service,
Mhm.
and this voice is meant to serve in a way that's not even about Carissa, but is about, you know, higher source of truth.
Mhm.
That to me is the most empowering way to do it, is to be a hollow bone and an open vessel for that.
Of course, that was your answer. Of course, I don't know if you saw my face, but it was like, oh, it was like medicine to hear that. Reclaiming my voice is what has transitioned me out of my old career and into this work. And it was through one breathwork session where I
Mhm.
realized how disconnected from my voice I was. And it was this like, I'll just tell you really briefly. I've already told this story on the podcast, so I won't go into detail, but I know you've been to a breathwork journey.
Yes, I have.
Yes, you have. Um, and the instructor was asking us to, we were like shaking it out and invited us to make a lot of sound. And everyone in the room was making sound and I couldn't make sound. And so I went through the like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why can't you do this? Like, come on, everyone else is doing it, like spiraling down, starting to realize, whoa, am I like so disconnected? Do I even have a voice? Like, do I even have one? And then realizing the women in my family, right? Like mom didn't have a voice, grandma didn't have a voice. And then I started to realize like how many of our voices have been taken. And then it wasn't until the instructor had us stop making sound and come back to our breath that I like let this little squeal out. And it was like, you know, those moments where it's like, oh, this is a full body knowing that that story ends here and I have just refound my voice. And it was, I have goosebumps every time I talk about it. It was in that moment that I was like, okay, fitness career burning to the ground. This is what I do. This is what I do. Okay, I'm home. Great. So I'm here with you in that. And thank you for your voice and thank you for your work. And yes, just a yes.
Thank you for sharing that. Also, I feel more connected to you, and I've had so many of those moments. And similarly, when I would be in breathwork journeys, everybody would be screaming and letting out these liberated, powerful emotions, and I couldn't. My whole throat would contract.
Yeah.
And I would also question, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And even when I tried to make it was like not in like the belly of my body. It wasn't really deep in there. And once I started to have safe spaces to express, to liberate these emotions, it became something I was so deeply passionate about and something I continue to work through and move through. And I think a lot of people are moving through that right now. Like, I don't know, how your audience might not know this, but so I'll share a little bit. I do
Please.
oracular work. So I'm an
Yes.
oracle.
Go into that, please.
Yeah, so I'm an oracle, and so I get a lot of visions, prophetic visions about humanity, about other people. And one of the things, the message, and I also connect with spirit guides and angels, ancestors. Like I really play in like the higher dimensions and
Mhm.
receive a lot of information. And one of the things that I received is that these last couple of months were a major collective throat activation. And you could just look online and you can see there's been a shift in people speaking up and saying what's real, saying what they've been wanting to say, removing perfection. There's been a major collective throat activation. And I don't really follow astrology, and I'm not an astrologer, but I pay attention to it.
Mhm.
And I double checked my information with astrology, and
Mhm.
there's also a lot of things aligning with that. So I just wanted to presence that, and I'm happy to talk
Mhm.
more about the work that I do. But I do feel that this is a major, major, major theme for 2024.
Yeah.
And because we're going to need it to carry us through some of
Yeah.
the other things that are going to be happening throughout the rest of this year, there's going to, I don't know how much we want to get into that, but I'll just preface by saying I think that there's going to be a lot of information that comes out to people,
Mhm.
and it's going to be difficult for some people to discern within themselves who haven't done the internal work to be able to trust their intuition and
Mhm.
God, creator, whatever they believe. And
Mhm.
so they're going to be looking to guides and coaches and mentors, people that they do trust, to help them anchor and reflect back. What is the thing that I'm feeling? Oh, this person is also feeling that. So they can cultivate more of that. But
Mhm.
since there's going to be so much information coming out, it's going to be really important that people who do have something powerful, truthful, and highest alignment to say, people are going to be paying attention and needing that information now more than ever because of fake news and all that. We won't get into so much of that, but I'm just saying that truth right now is going to carry us through these next
Mhm.
couple of years. And so this is why when I was saying it's not about me, although it's great, I came here to heal, involve, and awaken my ancestry as well. There's a greater divine assignment happening here that I signed up for, and I came here to do that. So that's what I'm going to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I had so many like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I don't, it's like my brain is like, okay, no, one thing at a time. We can have multiple conversations. But that piece of like knowing your truth and with all of this information coming in through this year, if we are, and I'm going to, well, no, I'll just speak to humans actually. It doesn't matter who we are, or what we are. If we aren't connected to ourselves and know what we stand for and what we believe in and what we feel to be true and right and good in our soul, that's where we get twisted up in the tornado of what's going on around us, right? There is always so much noise and stimulation and chaos going on around us. And if we don't have that anchor in self, of course, we're going to get twisted up and lifted and taken away with it all. And I think a perfect example was the last couple of years where people were just flying around like winging it and just going with the flow and not anchoring into their truth. And so what a beautiful reminder that you know there hmm, how would I word that? I think just for me and at least the work that I do with the clients, it's like for me, that is the ultimate reclamation, is like knowing exactly who I am and what I feel to be true, and outside of the chaos. So like really a reminder for us to spend time with self, to spend time with spirit, to spend time outside of the chaos, to get really firm, excuse me, in our truth, in our truth. And good warning, thank you, that there's going to be some stuff this year, isn't there always?
Yeah, I mean, we're just on a major ascension path, and I love what you said. I don't know who said this, but it feels really powerful to bring this forth is, if you don't know what you stand for, you'll fall for anything, whatever
Right.
that quote is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it is. And I think, a lot of people ask me, well, how do I find my truth and my belief system? And I think so much of that has to do with um ridding yourself of what is not who you are, right? So much
Yeah.
of this healing work is a remembering and
Mm.
is a shedding of all that is not us and all that is not truth.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we'll just plant the seed there, and people can choose. But and I don't mean to say it in a chaotic way, like anticipate chaos. It's just we're shifting into a new paradigm. Of course, there's
Mhm.
going to be crumbling. Of course, there's going to
Yeah.
be things that happen. We've already seen so much of it. It's happening currently. It's
Yeah.
just we're living in a dimension and a reality right now where we're choosing, and we're constantly in choice points of anchoring into fear or anchoring into love,
Mhm.
and it is as simple as that, but it doesn't always feel like it.
Yeah. Okay, let's thread off of that just for a minute. If you were working with a client or a friend or anyone who is like, oh, I'm like in that like wavering energy of where their patterns would maybe be anchoring into fear. What like is there an easy, quote unquote, air quotes, easy or tangible practice or invitation that we can bring someone into to really lean into that love over fear?
To be honest with you, I recommend a lot of breath work.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I think it has so much to do with nervous system.
Hmm.
And I had a client earlier and I'm very different in a lot than a lot of intuitives, oracles, spiritual guides, because my greatest desire is to help people see that they are their own guru, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
share my vision, but ultimately I want to invite people into an experience where they can see that the power, the answers, the love, it does exist within them.
Yeah.
So, practices like breath work, I personally have been loving cold showers and cold baths. And I know that some people, especially the feminine beings I work with, they're kind of like, that's a masculine way. And I get it. And we also have a vessel that has a nervous system. And so some of these tools are really supportive in anchoring us back into, so we can actually hear the truth of our soul. We got
Yeah.
to pay attention to the ways that the trauma bubbles up. So let me tune in and see if there's another practice. But immediately I was thinking breath work to
Hmm.
regulate the nervous system. And I
Yeah.
love breath of fire. I love doing holotropic. There's
Yeah.
all different kinds of breath work you can do, box breathing.
Hmm.
Um, Let me see if there's anything else.
Hmm.
One of the things that I think is really underrated and is an incredible tool that really does support the nervous system, coming into truth, knowing who you are, connecting to spirit. It's like a one-stop shop,
Hmm.
is going out into nature.
Yeah.
Putting your feet on the ground, feeling the frequency, the actual scientifically measured frequency of the
Yeah.
Schumann resonance,
Yeah.
being in silence, not around all those electromagnetic energy that is happening in cities and villages and in these spaces, and going out and listening in the way that the birds chirp. Even the way that the birds chirp has a frequency that can totally reset your nervous system.
Yeah.
The sun that comes in. So honestly, that's one of my favorite, most simplest practices without going into entire experience here right now. That to me has been the greatest saving grace that has offered me tools for all of those things that I just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was coming up for me when you were talking about that is, and this is a conversation I have a lot with my community, is fear lives in the head. It's logical, it's survival, and love lives in the body, right? Almost anything outside of fear lives in the body. And we are so conditioned to be in our thinking head all the time.
Mhm.
And there's a time and a place, and we need it. And thank God that it works the way it does. And it's like, I don't know, a 16th of our body. Like, why are we spending so much time in this upper little ball when we have this entire vessel that holds the wisdom? It holds the wisdom. And I would agree with you. I don't know the last time I've ever come out of a breath work or had clients come out of breath work where love wasn't there. It's just like
Totally.
it's right there. What also comes up a lot, and you've already said this, is that like that knowing that oof, everything I need is right here. Like it's all right here. I
Right.
have
We
the power.
outsource.
It's right
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gosh, we've been outsourcing. I have been outsourcing, not so much anymore, but wow, my younger years, I think back to how often I was seeking outside of myself for everything, permission, the answers, the how to, what I should do, everything. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to elaborate on what you were saying for a moment too.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I tell my clients the same thing. The sort of the saying that's come through for me is like the head has no direction and the heart has no question.
Ooh.
And
Mhm.
so, oh, I just got chills even saying
Yeah.
that. I haven't said that in a while. And we undervalue the not only the spiritual and esoteric information around the wisdom and the truth of the heart, but also the science. The
Yeah.
Heart Math Institute has been studying the heart and its ability. There's a bilateral communication happening between the heart and the head. We often think that one influences the other, but they're communicating with each other. The
Mhm.
nervous system has, or the heart has its own nervous system. It can
Right.
pick up on information before it's even seen visually. I mean, I don't know if you are aware of that study that they did. If are you
No.
aware? Okay, so they did a study where they brought people into a room. They had like a computer, and they were going to show them pictures of people with different emotional expressions and study the way that the body responds. So one picture would have an angry face, another would have a loving face, and they went through that. What they noticed was that the body physiologically, particularly the heart, was responding to the photo before it was even on the screen.
Wow.
So, and it wasn't just
Oh.
responding in a way of like, oh, it's like activated. It was responding specifically to an anger in a way that it like contracted and it was responding specifically to happiness in a way it expanded before it even saw it visually. So the heart is picking up on information before it even drops into this physical reality. And I tell my clients all the time, and I, continue to anchor in this truth is that the heart is the medium between worlds. So
Mm.
it picks up on spirituality, which is essentially the study of the unseen. That's what spirituality is.
Mhm.
So I think the heart has so much wisdom that we
Mhm.
can anchor into. And like you said, everything does exist within us. And we often outsource. And we all have our journey with going through that, but it's not, it's a cliche saying because it's true, but it all does exist within us.
Yeah, it really, really does. There's two things that came through as you were speaking. Oh, right. That whole cliche, I say, follow your heart, that statement. But as with everything, if we actually pause and like thread back to the root of where that originated, I would be curious to know where that actually originated from, because that is the truth. Like if we actually can learn to follow the expression and follow the desire of the heart, like game over. It's easy. It's easy at that point. And that saying gets said, and I just think it goes in one ear and out the other, because it's challenging. We haven't been taught in this time anyways to how to do that in a good way, and we're all just learning it now, and thank goodness we're learning it. And the other piece has completely left my mind, whatever I was just
Well, I'll say something about that while you continue to tune in. But, I think the reality is a lot of us know these principles. Follow your heart, go slow, take it easy, trust the divine, da da da. But also, something that Spirit has shared with me is that principles without practice are powerless.
Mm.
So, if we know this information and we're not embodying it and we're not acting in a way of knowing that it's true, it's powerless. The
Yeah.
information doesn't matter. So, this is where the edges are. How do you live a heart-centered life? the work that I do is often helping people live a spirit-led life and create sacred success.
Mhm.
And living in that way is disorienting and it's confusing because you're not just operating from the traditional ordinary state of mind. You're
Mhm.
operating from a higher level of consciousness. You're accessing wisdom that isn't in this plane or reality or existence. You're tapping into the innate and ancient wisdom of the body. It's a
Mhm.
totally different reality and paradigm that we're entering in. And
Yeah.
so, it's easy to know the information, like knowing from the mind, but to know GNO, knowing the
Yeah.
gnosis of it in the body, that's the path that we're all walking.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily always an easy one.
No, and it's, we talk about this. I co-facilitate medicine retreats, and same with breath and same with anything. I mean, gosh, if you're reading a book, if you're learning anything that we're learning, that's like the 20% of the work. Great. Okay, you went to ceremony. Wonderful. You met God. Wonderful. You've read this book on how to transform your life. Excellent. What are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about it? Because that 20%, the experience of learning it, of oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, is that's that's not the work.
No.
The work is implementing that and integrating it in and becoming that and getting uncomfortable and doing things radically differently. And I think about, people who go to like 100 ayahuasca ceremonies. It's like, do you need to go to 100 ayahuasca ceremonies? Like, what are you not integrating? What
I'm
is
still
happening?
integrating the one I went to like 3 years ago.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel that. I shared this on my story yesterday. I had a really confronting, an edgy conversation with my dad,
Okay.
and it was a choice point. Were you going to say something about it?
So I was watching your stories this morning, and when this is aired, it'll be like not this morning, but I missed the original. But when you were sharing in your stories about this conversation you had with your dad, and I was hoping it would come up because I have stuff with my dad, and so I don't know your stuff with your dad, and I'm curious. So yes, thank you. Check. Go ahead. Listening.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I don't know why I feel inspired to bring this up, but I'm going to anyway.
Mhm.
So it's about like a choice point. So basically, my parents are wonderful.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of us, have challenges with our parents not being emotionally attuned. There's a lot of trauma, whatever everybody else's story is. My parents are fundamentally wonderful people and they have their own trauma. I
Yeah.
can have compassion. Me reclaiming my voice has also inspired me to have compassion and
Mhm.
uphold my boundaries and needs and
Yeah.
expectations and communicate about things that are bothering me. And so yesterday I had a conversation with my dad and I was getting really frustrated. And a pattern of mine is I've done a lot of work around this, but particularly with my family, I have a very low frustration tolerance. So
Mhm.
when I get frustrated, I'm just like, fuck it, I'm out. I'm gone. I'll
Yeah.
talk to you later. It's not worth this conversation right now. We're not getting anywhere. And in that moment, I saw the pattern coming up, and I had an option. I had a choice. I can either I can either go into my old pattern and I can continue to play this story because what happens is the pattern comes up, I leave, and then not only do we not get into resolution, there's a lack of intimacy, which is ultimately what I want with my father, and I continue to feel I'm unseen, I'm unheard, I'm not attuned to.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
I'm noticing this come up, and instead of going down that path, I had like 5 seconds and I felt it bubbling up and I took a moment, I took a breath and I realized this is the moment. This is the moment when you have a choice to break a pattern. This is a pattern interrupt. This is an opportunity to do something different. This is the way I practice what I know. This
Yeah.
is the moment when it's hard, when you're triggered and you're frustrated in family, da 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 da. And so I did. I communicated with my father and I said, Dad, I'm noticing I'm really feeling frustrated. I'm noticing the pattern of mine arising where I want to leave. And I shared with him how I was feeling to liberate myself of the feeling, to give myself space to breathe because I didn't know how I wanted what I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
he was able to try to meet me. He tried to meet me. He attempted, he did his best. And I wanted to share that. And we can continue to elaborate in the conversation with dad stuff and whatnot. But it goes back to the choice point. We have moments throughout our lives and days where we can come to greater resolution and healing in the subtle, experiences that we have, the thought that we choose, the micro decision that we make with our parents, the way we express our needs. We think that quantum leaping in our lives happens in these medicine ceremonies where like, oh, I
Mhm.
come back and I spoke to angels and I saw my life story. And
Yeah.
it really happens in those micro decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis. That compounding effect really matters.
Yes. Wow. That story, yeah, I really resonate with it a lot. My body's responding to it a lot. Just to like pump the podcast, that it's things like that. It's that moment that is a reclamation. And I think when some people hear, oh, like reclaiming my power, wow, that sounds really big and almost scary, but it comes in these moments. It's like that you just like, wow, you just like pulled it all back and like called yourself back and like really anchored into that sense of self and power. I'm so happy that he met you or, in his way.
Like, and I think, and something else I shared in that story was, my dad doesn't know how to meet me.
Yeah.
And so I teach him, Dad, I'm really needing this from you right now. And sometimes we don't want to tell people what we need, but that's me reclaiming my voice. So
Yeah.
there's medicine for me in it and there's medicine for him. So there's this like symbiotic thing that as I reclaim my voice, as I speak to my needs, it gives him the opportunity to meet my needs and to show up as the father he really wants to. And like, well, this is already making me emotional. It's like,
Yeah.
that's so healing to give him a chance to help to like be in that with me. So oh, it's
Yeah.
so beautiful and so hard sometimes when it's just like I want to run and I want to leave and I don't want to confront this and then we don't get our needs met. So yes,
Hmm.
that is a reclamation of saying that like I'm going to speak to this for me and my dad not might not be able to meet me, but
Hmm.
how can I find safety within myself, not outsourcing my power to how somebody shows up for me, but feeling the safety within my body and my truth that I'm standing for my liberation. I'm standing for my my soul expression and whatever happens here, I trust the divine nature of it, but I'm showing up for it in this moment.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And that for me, like selfishly, that I'm taking that as proof and like permission that I can whew, do the same. I'll just share a little bit. And actually, it was driving home today. I was driving home from the vet, or it was before I was driving because I was watching a video. I watched a video on Instagram, and it was so simple. It was this video of an adult woman climbing into her lap. And it said something like crawling into my lap, crawling into my dad's lap the way I did when I was little to see his reaction. And she crawled into his lap and just like snuggled up. And he totally like put down what he was doing and embraced her. And I fucking sobbed. I
Mm.
sobbed. And so my story with my dad is my parents divorced when I was just a baby. And so I would have seen I don't even know when I was a baby how often I saw him, but once I was a toddler, I saw him every second weekend. So, and up until I was a teenager, and then I could drive, and then I was too cool for school and I didn't see him as often. But I have no memory of my dad holding me. And that was the first piece that like really broke my heart because I was thinking, wow, what would happen if I crawled into my dad's arms? How would he respond to that now as an adult? And which then cycled me into I was going in multiple directions. I had a whole bunch of feelings about my relationship with my dad, which I will go into a little bit, but it also was this like neon highlighting light of holy shit, it makes so much sense how I've interacted with men my whole life. I I've never known how to ask for what I want, be it just a hug or anything, help sexually, like anything. I have no idea how to ask for anything from a man. And I almost would resist it because I didn't want to seem needy. So I was just fine without it. I'm just fine without it. I don't need any of that. I'm totally cool. And so that I'm actually like, that is my personal homework for this next little while is to really unpack that. But my piece with my dad is I have this, now that I'm an adult, I have this assumption of what I think my dad thinks about our relationship because he seems really satisfied with where it's at. And I'm deeply desiring more depth. I'm deeply desiring him to see me. And when you said that, like as an example, when I worked in fitness, my dad totally got it and he was really proud of me and he would show, he'd show me off to all his friends and look at how great she's doing and blah 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 blah. Because, he can understand that it's tangible and there's photos and he gets it. When I stepped into breath work and somatics and this type of work, he knows that I facilitate breath work, but he has no idea what that means. He knows I facilitate medicine retreats and he thinks we just like sit around in a circle and get high together. So I was like, well, this is not what happens. And he seemingly has no real interest. Like he doesn't ask questions. And so the only time I get to talk to him about my stuff is if I bring it up, which already feels gross. Like I just want him to ask. And so there's this I've chosen to keep distance, and all the while I'm like martyring in this. My dad doesn't see me, my dad doesn't understand me, but I'm choosing to stay back here and not step forward. And what I really want to do is have him alone without his partner and like crack my heart open to him and ask, like, what kind of relationship do you want to have with your only child? What kind of relationship do you want to have with me? I want to ask him, did you ever embrace me? Did we snuggle? Did you hold me? Like, I don't remember. And
Mm.
yeah, there's so many layers to my relationship with my father. And there's this sadness that he's just satisfied with how it is. And I don't want him to be satisfied with how it is. I want him also to fight for this the way I want to fight for it. Granted, I know I'm not yet, but I'm getting there. And so there's sadness. There's almost even like frustration and anger, and almost like well, fuck you then. Like, why do I have to fight for this? Our relationships with our dads are so deep and so important. And I was thinking, like, wow, I had a present father. My dad was around. We had a ton of fun together. I know that. We did a lot of fun things together. And my dad has always believed in me and he has always spoken really sweetly and lovingly to me. And he's helped me when he can in the ways that he can. And he wasn't there for everything. I saw him 6 days a week or 6 days a month, pardon me. And so I was thinking about the repercussions of being a child without a father around, like a loving, solid, anchored man around. It's big. Like it's big. I'm a totally high functioning human. Yes. And in the layers of me, there's a lot wrapped up in my relationship with my dad, who is a loving dad, was a loving dad. It's just there's just so much there. And I really know that I'm not alone. And even just having this conversation with you, and it feels so fucking uncomfortable to open it up
Mm.
with him.
Mm-hmm. It's so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And edgy and crunchy and
Hmm.
it is, the greatest healing, I think, of our lives to go to the origin
Hmm.
of where all these things began. And I really commend you on your awareness around, what's coming up for you and claiming kind of what you want. I know there was a lot of curiosity and questioning around what he wants, but underneath that, I hear, if I can offer you reflection,
Hmm.
of a little girl who says, like, I want more closeness with
Yeah,
you,
that's
you know?
exactly it. Mm.
Yeah. So there's a little girl in there who wants greater intimacy, who wants more depth and connection.
Yeah.
And to own that as an adult woman who's very capable and powerful, and it's sometimes difficult to do, to hold the both and of, like, I am powerful and,
Mm.
like, oh, I still really want this and you and here. And sometimes feeling the ways in which that isn't able to be reciprocated,
Mm.
the possible letdown,
Hmm.
and I feel that also with my father. My greatest challenge with him was he was also very present in my life, but not very present.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of my high achieving tendencies, although I'm like, astrologically, I have like 3 planets in Mars, like I'm definitely an Aries and blah, blah, blah. Um, a lot of my high achieving tendencies were to get his attention.
Yeah.
Dad, look at me, pay attention to me, wanting him to be not physically here, but emotionally here. My
Yeah.
greatest challenges with him are emotional.
Yeah.
It becomes, yeah, it becomes the greatest healing of my life, and seeing out all of these like pocket personalities or patternings or protectors of way of operating in the world, particularly with men, have showed up because of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think it's really beautiful to work in our most intimate relationships, whether it's like our partners or our friends, to heal these things. And sometimes you got to go all the way to the root,
Mm-hmm.
to really
Mm-hmm.
go there. And it's muddy, it's dirty, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's can be also really beautiful.
It usually is. It
Yeah.
usually is. And there's also this awareness of, we make something often to be so much more than it is, bigger and uglier and harder and scarier than it is. And then you actually have the experience and it's amazing.
I feel like that with every cold shower or cold plunge I take. I'm like, every time I'm like, no, I get in, I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. Okay. You're right. There is this anticipation because all the parts, all the trauma, all the fears are coming up. And then when you're actually in the space with the person, you're like, oh, okay. Like we can do
Mhm.
this. We can manage this. We can navigate. So you're right. Oftentimes it is a lot easier, but sometimes, it's not. And so you don't know exactly. But that's why these tools are so important. So regardless of what's happening externally in their system, in their process, how they're communicating, you can
Mhm.
stay regulated. You can nurture. You can reparent yourself. You can have your internal father, your internal mother, or, on a conscious level, like Father God, Mother Earth, like
Mhm.
those kinds of ways to care for that little inner being, that little inner child that we all have.
Yeah. Yeah. Good reminder. Hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
vulnerable.
it is. And on that too, I feel like it's important to share, like, I'm not sure the work ever ends, and
I
that's
wish.
it's
Yeah.
great. How
Mhm.
boring would it be if we had it all figured out? What would we do with our time?
I think about this often. I actually ask higher guidance a lot around this because I'm like, wow, there are some moments where I'm like, I don't think I could, and not in a way of like suicidal, like, I don't think I could actually handle anything else or
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And, Spirit always tells me like, we give you, we offer you, we create spaces of healing for you because we know you can, right?
Oh yeah.
And on the most cosmic level of this whole script, this whole play of world that we got going on here,
Hmm.
kind of my perspective, and this not might not be everyone's, it's kind of what we signed up for. We have
Hmm.
a soul that's evolving.
Yep.
We have an earth that's ascending. We have major things happening planetarily, historically, interpersonally, interdimensionally, all the things. And so this is Earth School, and we signed up, for this. But what I will say, this is my own process and vision, if I can offer
Yes,
thought
please.
for people, is I think these last couple of years and these next couple of years are going to just be like massive growth. And
Yep.
I do see us entering into more of like the golden age where things are more manageable, they are easier, they are not so every time I turn around, I'm triggered, and some
Hmm.
full moon is like keeping me up at night where I'm purging all these emotions. I do feel that with the tools that we have, with the community that we have, as well as with the purging that's happening currently, I
Hmm.
do feel that in the near future we won't be so confronted with the enormity of healing that we have been. And
Hmm.
in these next couple of years we'll kind of continue to move through subtly.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Hear that, everybody?
I mean, it will never end. I will say that. I agree. Like it's not going to go away, but I think our ability to manage it will
Hmm.
be better, and we'll have greater intimacy and community for people to hold us, and people will be more aware. The
Yeah.
world is really waking up, and people, and particularly our parents and the generations of our parents' age, are seeing the mistakes that they've made and are seeing.
Yeah.
So everyone might not be, but um yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of the journey we signed up for.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And it is this, like we're in and of around the same age. And it is our generation that is primarily making the change. And I'm so proud of us. And obviously I'm here for it. I signed up for it. And I think there needs to also be this compassion and forgiveness for those who came before us. They didn't know. They weren't
Mhm.
given the tools. They weren't given the privilege to do the work that we're getting to do. And so I do see how it's going to evolve in a really beautiful way because it really, no, is everyone doing the work? No, not everyone is doing the work, at least not in the same way, but there is an awakening, there is a rise. Like I see it everywhere and I hear it everywhere. And that just, we know we have to just stay anchored in what we know to be good and true and right, and keep following the steps and following our process. And it's all here. It's perfectly placed. I do believe that, completely perfectly placed and perfectly timed, and we're doing it just right.
Yeah. Yeah. I continue to remind myself to see everything that's happening through the eyes of God.
Mhm.
And maybe God doesn't, resonate with you, whomever is listening to this, but there is a lot of compassion that we get to have. Even, one of the things that I'm really moving through right now is deep forgiveness for the mistakes that I've made over the last couple of years. I learned so many lessons about my power, about money, about my need to be significant in the world. And
Mm.
so the ways in which I operated and built a business, spoke on things, whatever. I've always been a really heart-centered person, but I was outsourcing a lot of my power to vanity metrics, to
Right.
the way that the world has formally defined success in cars and money.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of decisions that I look back and uh, I was so angry for a long time. I was really angry at that part of me, that younger version of me, that aspect, the trauma I didn't know. And so there's a lot of forgiveness happening, and we get to have for ourselves and for each other, because this earth is no joke. And when it's only when you have the awareness, you know, that we look back and we're like, oh, I would have done things differently. But had I had the awareness then, I would have not done the things that I did, of
Yeah.
course. But now that I have the perspective and the shift, I can look back and I can really welcome that part of me home, because I have felt a little disjointed because I have exiled her. Oh,
Yeah.
the part of me that wants significance, the part of me that wanted to be filthy rich. And I still
Mhm.
want those things, but it's
Yeah.
not from a place of powerlessness or like that's the only way I'm valuable to the world.
Yeah.
And so as I welcome that part of me home, I feel more whole, not
Mhm.
exiling her, making her
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
There's been so much liberation in that. And I think that that's the
Yeah.
same thing that's happening on a collective level when we don't exile people, when we don't judge them or make them wrong for the ways that they're operating in the world, and
Yeah.
see everything through the eyes of God, creator, source.
Yeah.
That frequency of love, that compassion, that just transmutes all.
Absolutely. Well, as we exile others or ourselves, we're creating more separation, we're creating more
Yeah.
divide, when ultimately the intention, the hope, all of us, whether we're speaking it or not, we want union, we want community, we want connection, we want oneness. Like that's what I trust that that is what we all want if we get out of the fog of what everyone's telling us. And and then the question is like, is it set up for us to be moving into this space of separateness and oneness? And again, that's like if we stay true in who we are, we don't get roped into that. But it's not the way. Like getting rid of parts of self, it's not the way. When was anything ever healed by like anger or shame or hiding or secrecy? Never. It's healed with like, oh, come, come be here. I love you. Come be here. Those parts
Yeah.
of us are so important. They're our teachers. They're our greatest teachers.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And when we see it through that perspective, I think our whole lives and our whole reality can shift, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I want to change the energy just a little bit, and not I could talk about this forever and always, but I'm also curious what right now in your life is like really juicy and good. What are you like, like chomping at the bit to be doing and sharing, and what's up right now?
Um, oh, there's so much. My life feels very alive, juicy, and expansive right now. I'm
Oh,
actually meeting a lot of edges with what I'm capable of holding,
yeah.
just in terms of my own work, my own development, what I'm calling in. So I'm meeting a lot of that. But I will say that one of the things that I'm feeling the most passionate about right now is really supporting people in connecting to the higher source of wisdom.
Mhm.
Like I said before, I think one of the greatest skill sets that we'll have moving forward in our life is our ability to use discernment and our ability to tap into our own felt experience of what truth is and how to speak it, how to share it, how to welcome it, how to identified, etc. And you know, I've I've had my spiritual gifts since I've been a child, and over the last couple of years, they've come along a lot online a lot more. And I held a lot of shame around, like, I'm a medium, I'm a psychic, I do a lot of intuitive work, and not knowing where I fit in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I guess that's a piece that's actually the piece that I want to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
is feeling like I don't fit in. I was
Right.
really in the personal development field for many years. And then I went to kind of the spiritual community, and I'm like, I feel kind of like an outcast in both. I
Mm-hmm.
have one foot in spirituality, and I still love like the personal development psychological work. And I when I was in psychology, I have a master's degree in that. I was in counseling for a while. I was neglecting the body, and then I went full somatic in that, and I was neglecting the psychology, and I just have felt like I've never fit in.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm like forging a new path for myself of seeing my own uniqueness, and
Mm-hmm.
how, as I share my uniqueness, it also gives permission for other people
Mm-hmm.
to see that as well.
Yeah.
And that's getting me so juiced up. Like, my content is changing. It's funnier, it's lighter, it's also deep, and it's just bringing all of me, this multi-dimensional space for
Mm-hmm.
me to welcome all parts of me, share all of it. And as I do that, that's when I can connect to my deepest truth. That's when I can connect to the higher source of wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm here, I'm
Mm-hmm.
whole, I'm
Mm-hmm.
owning my knowing, I'm owning who I am. And that level of wholeness, I think, gives us, unfathomable access to universal information and consciousness that I think helps make life so much easier. Like, recently I'm creating a new program, and instead of being like, what is it going to be? How do I figure it out? Like, I'm pointing at my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
I open up the space. I tune into my heart. What wants to come through me? What wants to move through me? Because all parts are here. I'm allowing the sassy, the fun, the creative, and the psychological, professional, all the wild, where I'm doing dance videos, whatever. All parts of me are here. And when I can allow that, I open up the space. It just kind of streams through me. So I know there's several layers to that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's kind
Right.
of, yeah, that's what I'm meeting right now, is all of that. And it feels so juicy and alive. Definitely
Perfect.
alive. Yeah.
Good. We like alive and we like juicy. We like all of that. Well, I can't wait to see what you're birthing here. Okay, you went into it a little bit. Can you like your bio is impressive. Your skills are very impressive, and all of that is great. I prefer story over like letters and things that we have. But can you like kind of walk us through your story, your journey? And part of that I do want to hear, because one of the other questions I did want to ask you is, when did you connect to your intuition and your intuitive gifts? And so you spoke to that a little bit. Um, yeah. So however you want that story to go, I would love to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I'll go way back because it offers greater context.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will resonate in a way of that we all have access, but we kind of stop trusting ourselves for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, at a very early age, I was a very highly sensitive being. I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression at the age of 6 years old,
Okay.
which, who diagnoses a kid at that age? And it was really difficult for me to navigate in the world because I felt like I had this mental health issue. And
Mm-hmm.
so growing up, I never felt like I had that, but I always felt like energy would come in. I didn't know what it was. And at the time, looking back, it was other people's energy, it was information, and I would hear voices, and I thought I was crazy, or I'd feel energy and I thought it was my anxiety. So growing
Mm-hmm.
up, I had a lot of these gifts online. And then I also had an experience with a caregiver who ended up sexually abusing me. And during that time, a part of me like fractaled off. That's when I really lost my voice. That's when I really shut down, was around that age.
Yeah.
So growing up, I always felt like I could tap into this information, but I felt like I was nuts. Like, I had a problem, I had an issue.
Yeah.
And then what happened was 2019. Oh, so long story short, I mean, like, I went to school. I did all these things to be able to understand the psyche, because I
Uh,
had used drugs and substances in order to numb. I was
yeah.
getting in trouble, all that. And then when I got older, I ended up going to school to get my degree in psychology. But when things all shifted is this. In 2019, I went through a very serious breakup, and I was in Orange County by myself, and I had a very successful business, and things were really skyrocketing for me. And When I went through that breakup, I needed to take time off, but structurally, I actually couldn't. I had like 10 clients, I had a mastermind, I had like all of these things happening, and I couldn't let go and create space for myself. And that's when my whole reality started to collapse. And then we went into COVID in 2020, and then everything fell apart in the best way. And that's when I started to hear more clearly my guidance come through, like guides actually come through and tell me what was happening, why it was happening, what was happening in the world. And backtrack for one moment. Before information started coming through again, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose it, because I had gone into depressive episodes before. Oh my God, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose everything. And one of my friends reflected back to me, who's also very psychic. She said, is it possible this is an anxiety and depression and you're actually picking up on a lot of other people's energy? And
Mhm.
that's when it clicked.
Yeah.
And then so once I started to reorient towards that truth, I was like, that's not my voice. That's somebody's ancestor. And then I would check and it'd be like, yeah, this is somebody you went to college with. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been thinking I've been crazy my whole life.
Wow.
So throughout 2020, those 2019, 2020 through 2022 were deep years of cultivation of this gift again, to re-welcome it, to open up my channel, to practice, to discern what's here for light, what's not, what's my intuition, what's my projection. So it's been a deep, deep reclaiming process of my voice, of my truth, of my gifts, but also a lot more mastery has needed to happen to be able to use them as an open vessel and a channel. So happy to dive in more of that if need be, but that's essentially what happened. Is it came from a tower moment where everything was collapsing. I felt like I had no one. I was in
Mhm.
San Diego 2020 by myself, no one around. My business was collapsing
Mhm.
during COVID, and I started to freak out. And that's when the voice of God, angels, ancestors come through, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not alone. And then that's when they were starting to help me rebuild my life and my business with that kind of divine support. And I can't imagine my life without that. It was
Yeah.
so confusing and lonely. And I felt like I was carrying so much of, I need to create this, I need to do this. But when you tap into that and you see how they orchestrate and how life all orchestrates things
Mhm.
in your favor, you can,
Mhm.
oh, you can just be, and things are easier. And you're just like existing in the world and following these adventurous breadcrumbs of like, oh, this sign, what's this? And it's like everything pieces together. It's like this beautiful adventure. So, yeah, I'll pause there, but that's kind of what happened.
Wow. When you were talking about being 6 and being diagnosed, and then were you put on medication?
I was put on medication in my early teens. And so I was on medication for a very long time and I was numb to life.
Yeah, of course you were. And it's like that feeling of I don't belong here, I don't fit in. That's probably when that started.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
something's wrong with me is a
uh,
really big pattern that I still navigate. Something's wrong with me.
of course, it's been there for so long.
Hmm.
It's so rad. Does your family get it?
My family is actually also very spiritually gifted. So
Mm.
my parents are also pretty awake. My mom is a medium. My sister is like a
Uh,
dream walker and an intuitive. And I believe that my grandmother, and my great grandmother all have the same birthday. Like,
mm,
so, and I come, and they all had abilities and whatnot. My grandmother was definitely a very psychic and intuitive, but she was also an alcoholic. So she
mm,
wasn't really tapped into it. So I come from a very long line of very psychic, intuitive women, and they all get it. So my mom, the other day when I was moving through something, I called her and she was channeling my grandfather who was coming through and just offering the most like unreal advice that like he would actually offer. I could just feel his transmission. And my sister has these dreams that are prophetic. So they all get it. It's really
oh my
cool to
God.
be able to practice. My mom and I are in a practicing like channeling group together. We get together with
Ah,
these other women and we go into the space and just practice our gifts to cultivate them together.
that is so cool. Oh, that's like I get like giddy about that. There's this yeah, that's very cool. I'm happy for you for having that.
Thank you. I feel very blessed
Yeah.
to have that. Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. I don't even know what time it is. Okay, we're coming up to an hour. Let's just do that. We might, keep talking after, but let's get this done in case I forget at the end. But
Yeah.
first tell me what what do you got going on? Where are we all finding you? What's available? How do people work with you? All of that stuff. and then we'll see where we go after that.
Yeah. So you can find me, and I can send you links if you put them in show
Mhm,
notes or
mhm,
whatnot.
mhm,
But Carissa Johnson is my Instagram and my website. That's typically where I hang out. And then, yeah, I haven't launched a program in a really long time, and I have something coming up. So that might be in alignment with when this comes out. I'm not sharing the details yet. But I do have something if people are wanting to connect more with spirit and live a spirit-led life and also create really profound sacred success that's in alignment with their soul truth.
mhm.
So I'm creating that right now, and we'll be launching that soon. And I I don't know if I'll have private spaces open, but there's an application online that people can apply to and have potential retreats coming up later this year. So everything's on my website. People can just find it there.
Okay, where are these retreats?
I'm not sure yet,
Okay.
but I don't know. I'm kind of feeling Sedona.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm feeling domestic right now, so feeling
Yeah.
maybe Sedona. Um yeah, I'm still tapping into that. I just listen to the guidance when it comes through, but I'm
Mhm.
feeling a gathering of some sort. I'm
Yeah.
really feeling that
Yeah.
as a yes. So now I'm just kind of waiting to figure out where exactly it is.
Perfect. Love
Yeah.
that. I've actually never been to Sedona, and I also had a big hit this year. I was like, oh, you should probably host something there. So I should probably go to Sedona at the very least. How far is that from you?
I actually don't know how far of a drive it is,
Mm-hmm.
but it's probably a couple hour plane ride.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's magical there, isn't it? It's a portal, is it not? Your face
There's
right now.
many portals in Sedona. You could
Right.
go there and have no awareness of what you're doing in terms of visiting portals, and you would walk away. The frequency there, the electromagnetic frequency is higher. That's essentially there's a lot of portals in
Yeah.
places. Um, it's unreal there. There's like you have access to just such a higher state of consciousness. It's insane. And just like the people there are very unique and eclectic and eccentric and tapped in. I mean, you go to restaurants and you would definitely overhear people talking about past life regressions and
Yes.
like every like in that entire area, everyone is pretty much conscious doing this work, sitting in medicine ceremonies, facilitating them like everywhere. That's what they do there. It's a very, very, very conscious little town area.
Yeah, I feel
I
like
highly recommend anybody going to visit. It's incredible.
I yeah, I would like I feel I'm like Tucker, we're moving. Pack your bags. We're going to Sedona.
Heck 'em. Yeah.
Um, I have a friend who he's an incredible medium and intuitive and one of my favorite humans ever, and also a hairdresser. And he was doing my hair a few months ago, and he was telling me about a trip that he had recently taken to Sedona, and he was a guest support in a retreat, and he was talking about him and one of his girlfriends were road tripping from wherever they were into Sedona, and he was driving, and she was just playing with her pendulum, and he's like, Kyla, I kid you not. It went whoop and it went completely sideways. He's like, we drove into an area. I don't even know where we were. And her little pendulum went whoop, completely out to the right and it stayed there. He's like, it hovered. It hovered. I'm not even kidding you. And he wouldn't lie. I believe him 100%. And then it came down and it did a couple weird things. And then it kind of like hovered halfway again. But yeah, so I get it, and I feel like it's just a place that one needs to go.
And it's similar to medicine in a way when it calls you,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the land is calling you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it. Okay, well, what are you doing? Are you traveling? Do you have any trips? What's fun and like not work related in your life? Where are you going this year?
You know, what's interestingly enough is the guidance that I'm getting is very different from what it's normally been. So sometimes I'll get guidance of like future what I'm doing for the rest of the year. I do feel travel, but right now I feel the need to be anchored.
Mm-hmm.
What's coming through me needs ground, needs stability.
Yeah.
So I'm staying put for a little while. My birthday is coming up in a couple of
Mm.
weeks, so I'm excited about that.
Great.
And yeah, we'll just kind of see what happens. You know, one of the greatest shifts that I've taken in my life has been really living moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes hard because, people want to make plans and they're like, let's go to this concert in 6 months from now. I'm like, I can't. Like, I honestly, I really am being, and unless there's like a full fuck yes,
Yeah.
which, that's rare for things out in the future.
Yeah.
I'm really staying attuned to every moment. Timelines, things are shifting, energy is shifting so fast.
Hmm.
And so we'll see. Yeah, I'm just staying anchored right now, really attuning to the rest of this year. I do feel travel, but outside of what I've shared with the retreat and
Hmm.
that, I think I'll just kind of be flowing.
Hmm.
Not sure. Just I shared this on my story the other day. My friend Amanda Goldsby has shared this with me, and I love her dearly. She says she moves at the speed of spirit.
I
And I
love that.
really love that. And that's how I live my life. Sometimes it's very accelerated. I'm working, I'm creating, I'm going out, I'm doing all these things. And sometimes it's really slow. I'm in a lot of solitude.
Hmm.
So I move at the speed of spirit, of this the speed of the call. And right
Yeah.
now the speed of the call is slower inward, but creating a lot. I'm like sharing a lot of my voice. So we'll
Hmm.
see what it shifts into.
Yeah. The speed of spirit, that slowness. It's interesting. Like my one of my greatest life's lessons in this lifetime is to remember to move slow, to be slow. It is like it's a challenge sometimes. And today is a perfect example of me not listening to it. So I looked at my calendar this morning and I was like, oh, kind of spacious morning, great. Kind of slept in a little bit, had a workout, took the dogs for a walk, knew that there was like a couple work things I wanted to do. And in that, I was sitting at the desk and writing all the things down and quite quickly my list is like growing. So I'm like, oh, got to do this, got to do this. And then I went to edit a podcast that I recorded I had a podcast launch party last weekend and originally was like, oh, I'm not going to rush to put that episode out. And I was like, no, I'm going to put it out anyways. Doesn't matter why. So then I'm editing it, and then I realize that in the show notes, it's talking about this event that I'm running. And it's like, like link is in the show notes. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I haven't created the form for that. I haven't created the opt-in. I haven't created the landing page. I haven't created anything in order to have a link. So now I'm like hustling to get that done. I have to take the dog to the vet. And I'm, like making a coffee, doing the things, editing the podcast, creating the landing pages, like doing the things really, really quickly to then realize, oh shit, I have to leave in a minute ago to get to the vet on time. Swig my last cup of coffee, my last sip of coffee, misses, goes down my white tank top. And I'm like, of course it does. Getting changed, rapidly getting changed, come home and making lunch, walk the dogs again, making lunch, doing the thing, and like making lunch quickly, continuing to finish editing the episode. Cam or FaceTimes me from Costa Rica, and I'm like, I can't, I got it, like I can't do all of this. To then put my phone, no, to put that come off of FaceTime, pick it up and see your message. And for those listening, I had totally missed our call. And I was like, what? This is it. Like, what do you just slow down? Slow down. And I was invited to a concert in November. I was invited to a concert. The other day, my girlfriend's like, Usher's coming to Vancouver November 8th. We're obviously going. And I was like, well, obviously, yes. But I don't know if I want to go to Usher in November. I mean, I think I do because it's Usher and, reminds me of my teenage years, but also it's really far away. There's so much that could happen in between now and then. But there's this desire and there's this piece of me that has historically wanted to do all the things and say yes to all the things and keep myself really entertained and blah, 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 right? Like fill all the empty spaces. And it's this practice of mine of like, I don't have to. If I said yes to everything I wanted to do, I would never sleep. I would probably not eat. I would eat because food is for sure on the list of things I want to do.
Same.
But wow, and it's a really intentional practice to actually, do I need to do this? Do I actually need to do all of this?
Yep. It's a lot of pacing, a lot of slowing down. I just made a video on this on my social media, and
Mm.
it sounds like we're in a lot of alignment around this too. And I'm kind of giggling at your morning, but just how the divine is kind of guiding all of this too
Mhm.
is, one of the practices that I have are called energy checks.
Mhm.
And similar to how we take breaks and drink water, like when you get in the habit of every couple of hours, like, how am I breathing?
Mhm.
What is there an emotion present? How am I feeling? What do I need? Like checking in with your body throughout the day. I think has really supported me because I can go. I'm a generator. I can go nonstop. I will
Mhm.
always make space for food also.
Yeah.
But it's been it's a practice. It's a really big practice. And tuning into, is this in highest alignment for me to go to things, is a great question that I ask myself.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we can do all the things. And sometimes it's like a fuck yeah, we're going. And
Mhm.
other times it's like, oh, things are shifting so fast that it's like, I want to go, but will I want to go then? So it is certainly a practice, but you know, we all have our journey with navigating our energy and life is fun, you know? So of course we want to
Yeah.
make all the plans and do all of it. But I've made so many decisions in my life where I've committed to things that it wasn't fully a yes. And then I got
Yeah.
there and I was like, oh, I knew it. So then I had to sell a ticket or do whatever.
Yeah.
So now I've just been like, you know what? I'm gonna tune in and I'll get
Mhm.
back to you. So my friends know now that I
Yeah.
really take a lot of space to think about, not even think, to sit with it
Yeah.
and to really make sure that it's a full body yes before I
Yeah.
commit.
You feel about it. You don't think about it. You feel
That's
about it.
ooh, I feel about it.
I gotta feel
Yes.
about it.
Yes, I love that.
I love that energy check-in. That's a really good takeaway for everyone. It's a really, really good takeaway. On that note, because I am now mindful of time and both of ours, is there anything that's like right here that you feel needs to be shared that you want to share?
Mm. Yeah, you know, I think there would be kind of like a call to, I don't even want to say call to action, but like a call to implementation, a call to
Mhm.
integration. You
Yeah.
know, I invite, you know, we can get inundated with a lot of information, whether it's books, podcasts, conversations, whatever,
Mhm.
videos.
Mhm.
Yeah, I encourage people to take something away from this and to infuse it in their life. So maybe it's an energy check-in. Maybe it's asking your heart, you know, what do you have to say? Where are you taking me today? Maybe it is to slow down, you know, tune into something that really resonated with you today and then practice it and bring
Yeah.
it into your life. And don't just let this be another podcast that you listen to and then you go about your day. Let this be a deep transmission for you to feel into, for you to implement, for you to expand into new levels of your being. So I think we covered so much. I don't want to add more information, but I think it's, yeah, it's taking what's already here and taking a full slice and bite out of
Mhm.
it and digesting it and, you know, pooping it out.
Perfect. I
and then,
love that. Mhm.
and then, yeah, going about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious how many of us are going to go have conversations with our fathers.
You'd be surprised when I posted that video yesterday. I got so many people DMing me
Yeah.
about that same exact thing. So forgot about that also. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a huge one. So if that's something that people are feeling called to do it. You know, I've shared this before and I know we're wrapping up and my computer's actually about to die in a minute. But if the conversation's been on your heart, you might as well have it. You know,
Yeah.
how many times do we loop in like, I should call that friend. We're not good right now, or I should do that thing, or
Mhm.
my housemate keeps leaving her dishes around, and every time she does it, I feel this resentment or whatever. Like
Mhm.
if it's on your heart,
Yeah.
act on it in your life, you
Yeah.
know? So those conversations are really important and they become energy leaks. Because if we
Yeah.
don't have them, they pull at our energy and our consciousness. And
Yeah.
then we wonder, you know, why is this not moving forward? Because we've got energy leaking out everywhere. You
Yeah.
feel those charges and they're meant to be liberated. So
Mm.
yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Oof. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I am going to put all your goodies in the show notes. So pop over anything. Well, pop it over anyway, but yeah, we covered it like 25 minutes ago. And yeah, well, let's just do this again sometime.
Yes, please. I would love nothing more. I really feel that there's deep soul resonance here. We got it.
Yeah.
There's deep soul resonance here and sisterhood. And I feel grateful that we got to share this time and space together. And thank you for the honor to contribute to your show and to have this time together. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing to deepen connection in whatever way feels aligned.
Yeah. Same here, girl. Same here. Have
Beautiful.
have a beautiful day.
Thanks, you too. Bye bye.
Bye, love.